I grew up in Mexico. I've always knew that I was transgender, but it wasn't until I came to the US when I started to openly explore. I've been active in the transgender community and activism for 2 years now.
I grew up in a pretty fundamentalist church. I grew up thinking that I was going to hell. I grew up feeling pretty gross, and I had never heard the word transgender before.
Back in the 50s, we didn't even use the word transgender, and there was no internet, anything for me to figure out who I was, what was going on, why I felt the way I did.
I am a transgender woman. I am Mahu Wahine.
I work with the New York City Anti-Violence Project, specifically working to support LGBT survivors of violence.
I was working at a place called Show World. If they wanted me to take off an article, they would have to put a tip in, give me a tip before they got a show. And also I did street sex work. I couldn't get a job, and I needed, a place of employment so I can have a place to live. I really didn't like sex work. It wasn't for me.
I had to find ways to survive, right? I had to come up with a fake social security number. I had to use someone else's identity.
There's been a lot of progress made when it comes to lesbian and gay pastors and rostered leaders, but there's still a lot of ignorance and misconceptions out there when it comes to gender identity.
Year after year, our data would show that trans people, specifically trans people of color, were disproportionately impacted by violence. There's a real movement to sort of think about how violence impacts trans and gender nonconforming people, but it may look different depending on where you work. So it could mean that you're helping to teach trans people political education, or it could mean that you're helping to do soft skills training so trans people can get jobs and support themselves and live full lives.
The economic hardship is really awful. Trans women are 3 times as likely to be unemployed, and over 4 times as likely if they're trans women of color.
Violence, harassment. Many trans women are homeless, addicted to substances.
We need to take a bigger look at sort of what are we as an LGBT movement doing to protect trans people in a moment where they're not going to come after L, the G, the B, they're going to come after trans people.
There's a lot of fear because I think that we've been trained to think about our differences as divisive rather than gifts from God. So I think that being trans is a gift.
The hurdle sometimes that I'm facing is people really want to do trans organizing, but they don't have trans leadership. And so how do we organize trans people while simultaneously getting them into leadership positions?
I was the board president for our 501c3, Kuleana Mamo, that did 10 years of community work. Kuleana Mamo closed for lack of funding.
Is there enough funding going towards the trans community? No. There's not enough funding going towards the trans community, and a lot of the funding that's going towards the trans community is not going to the trans women with boots on the ground.
And we need to really think outside the box with trans people. When I say to people, I need money to give people jobs and to help them do job training and to feed them and to make sure that they aren't like out that night trading sex for a place to stay and have a secure home. Like, those are the things that I need help with. They look at me sort of cross-eyed, like, what do you mean that's gonna address violence against trans people?
The notion that one could actually have direct funding sources earmarked for addressing the trans community's needs, that would be phenomenal.
I am so excited to hear about the Global Trans Initiative, and I am so excited to hear that at least $20 million will be going to this cause.
The announcement of the Global Trans Initiative was huge, I think, because it's like the first time in my career where I've seen people willing to put money into trans leadership. And I think it's kind of a game changer.
The transgender community will rise up and put an end to the oppressive systems that continues to hold so many of us back.
The funding will help with housing some of the trans women. They'll be able to access education, decent health care. They'll be able to live a life that everyone else takes for granted.
When I heard of the Global Trans Initiative, I was so excited to know that they're working on bringing on peer funders who will also, bring in funds to add to that.
Funding trans people will save people's lives and also create some of the best agents of change you could ask for. We as trans people are incredibly diverse, incredibly driven, and incredibly smart. I think the biggest hurdle we face is people investing in our lives.